On Saturday morning in South Carolina, a house burned down in a blaze that could be seen for miles. Law enforcement's investigating the cause, but it should be noted that it was owned by Circuit Court Judge Diane Goodstein. While the justice was not home, 3 members of her family were, including her husband and son, and they've been hospitalized with serious injuries. It's notable that local law enforcement are providing extra patrols and security for the family in large part because the judge has received death threats in the weeks leading up to the fire. Apparently, she was targeted because of a ruling where she temporarily blocked the state commission from releasing voter files to the DOJ because of protected confidential information. This ruling infuriated the administration, and the AG's office went after the judge by name. If the fire turns out to be targeted, it would be the latest example of mounting political violence in America. Now, we all know of the tragedy in Utah where Charlie Kirk was assassinated, the Minnesota lawmakers killed for their voting record, attempts on the president, arson and kidnapping attempts on Democratic governors in Pennsylvania and Michigan, respectively, and on and on and on we go. But the acute targeting of judges is where I want to focus on today. On Saturday, a U.S. District Court judge nominated by Trump in 2019 blocked the president's deployment of 200 National Guard troops to Portland, and in doing so said his claims were that Portland were, quote, were war-torn and under siege by Antifa, that the president said, he said, in fact, the judge, that these were untethered to facts, and affirmed that this, quote, is a nation of constitutional law, not martial law, end quote. Trump said in response that he picked the wrong judge and that the judge ought to be ashamed of himself. His lackeys, they went even further. Stephen Miller, he called the decision, quote, legal insurrection. And Elon Musk suggested that Trump adopt the model of El Salvador's dictator. In that instance, independent judges in the country were forced out, replaced by loyalists, and a state of emergency was declared that allowed the El Salvadorian president to arrest and indefinitely detain any voices of opposition without due process. This is very scary talk, and we don't have to wonder where it might lead. The chief judge for the District of Rhode Island last month said that his court had received more than 400 threatening voicemails, including several credible death threats. It turns out his ruling that blocks Trump's freeze on federal aid earlier in the year made him a political target. And he's hardly alone. Dozens of judges whose rulings didn't sit well with the administration were targeting what's called pizza doxing. This is when their homes receive anonymous, unsolicited pizza deliveries, implying that the sender knows where the judge lives. What makes this especially troubling is that 2 members of this administration and supported lawmakers on Capitol Hill, they've legitimized these threats. Another Trump first-term appointee, New York Judge Richard Sullivan, he told the AP recently that, quote, threats against judges are threats against constitutional government. Everyone should be taking this seriously, unquote. For his part, Trump has called specific judges who've pushed back on his executive orders, quote, radical left lunatics and troublemakers and agitators, end quote. His Justice Department and GOP leaders on Capitol Hill have also inflamed the situation, calling any judicial pushback either a constitutional crisis or unauthorized by law. Now, the consequence of this, well, they're palpable. And they're a threat to an independent judiciary, and one where the men and women in robes have to look over their shoulder if they don't rule the way the Pennsylvania Avenue wants. In May, more than 150 ex-federal and state judges of both political parties' appointees signed a letter to Pam Biondi, the AG, and Kash Patel, the FBI director, telling them the administration attacks on the judiciary are fueling greater threats against judges. It said in part, and I quote, what we need is our political leaders from the top down to stop fanning these flames, to stop using irresponsible rhetoric, to stop referring to judges as corrupt and biased and monsters that hate America, end quote. On this, I hope, even in a divided nation, we can all agree.